This is a video that explains what is ELAC, the English Learner Advisory Committee. ELAC is a school site committee, TK, so transitional kindergarten through 12th grade. It is comprised of parents, caregivers, guardians, and staff community members who advocate for English learners. The committee is a site-based committee, as I said, so it's housed at the school. And they are charged with, this committee is charged with advising the principal, school staff, and the school site council on English learner programs and services. ELAC also assists in the development of the single school plan for student achievement, often referred to as SIPSA. The state mandate indicates that any California public school with 21 or more English learners or students identified as English learners must assemble an ELAC, an English Learner Advisory Committee. That's guided by Ed Code. So what are the required topics that should be covered every year by a site ELAC? Well, the site ELAC, which is a collaboration of Berkeley families, your principal, your ELD teacher, which stands for English Language Development Teacher, and your OFE specialist. So OFE stands for Office of Family Engagement and Equity Specialist. It's a collaboration that really is rooted in the school site community that serves and looks out for the best interest of students identified as English learners. But as I said, there are laws that accompany this committee. ELAC is charged with revising and planning each year for your school site. What does my school site need? What are the school programs that we have in place already for English learners? And what ideas do I have and can I bring that can help and better inform our single school plan for student achievement, our SIPSA, which I don't want to overlook that it does directly tie into our LCAP, which is the Local Control and Accountability Plan. This year it looks a little bit differently in the era of distance learning, and that they use the same acronym to make it confusing. It stands for the Learning Continuity and Attendance Plan. Site ELAC is also charged with giving recommendations to the principal and school site council, your SSC. ELAC is charged with giving input for district level initiatives, plans, and programs through their district ELAC committee member. So each ELAC will elect, and we'll get into this a little bit later, a DLAC representative, which stands for district ELAC. Your site ELAC will also discuss Berkeley supports for English learners. You'll discuss the enrollment process, how are students even identified as English learners? You should be discussing academic progress and success. How do we ensure that students are actually growing academically? And you'll also discuss the reclassification process, also referred to as RFEP. How do we know when students no longer are in need of ELD support services or English language development support services? Finally, the last mandate is to discuss the importance of attendance. So again, who can be on ELAC? Parent, caregivers, and guardians of English language learners, school staff, community members, and advocates for English language learners. I want to highlight here, though, that in terms of composition and how you make up your site ELAC, ELAC members must reflect the same percentage of the EL student body. And what does that mean? That means, let's say that there's a school site that has 75% students that are identified as English language learners. That means that their ELAC, that school's ELAC, should look just as though the school body should. And what I mean by that is that 75% of the site ELAC members should also be families of English language learners. Does ELAC have elections? Yes, there's requirements, and it reflects and embodies basically the same process for elections as your school site council. So that means that parents, families, and of English learners should elect parent members of the school committee to be a part of ELAC. They should be provided the opportunity to also vote for those committee members. And again, it reflects the same process. there should be ballots, there should be write-ups on bios that are distributed. And this is where it is different from school site council. The ballots and the bio write-ups for candidates should be shared with and distributed to the families of English language learners. Again, once the ELAC committee is established, the site ELAC should also have the opportunity to elect at least one member to represent their site at the District English Learner Advisory Committee, or DLAC. This gives us an opportunity to communicate those district-wide initiatives and what's going on and the thinking or the wondering of the district level. And it gives the school site an opportunity to report out of what the needs are and what are the specific and unique ideas that are coming from the school site that the district would benefit from. A few frequently asked questions: which schools are required to have an elected ELAC? Again, any school with 21 or more students identified as English language learners must form an ELAC. What is the role of ELAC? Again, it's to advise the principal and school site council on programs and services for English learners. The ELAC acts as an advisory capacity and really embodies the voice as an advocate for students who are identified as English learners within the greater whole of the English learner community. Again, composition, it must be reflective. So again, I borrow that example of if the student body is 75% students identified as EL, your ELAC should reflect accordingly. Now, that doesn't mean that community members, teachers, instructional assistants, etc. can't join, but those voting members, in terms of what is brought up specifically for the need of the school, has to be from families that are families of students identified as English language learners. Again, this is reflective of the practices and bylaws of school site council. Ballots, candidates of people that are running for office, an ELAC, a site ELAC should also hold the same type of positions, a president, vice president, etc. And again, the only difference in terms of ELAC is that only the parents, caregivers, guardians of students identified as English language learners may vote for the members of ELAC. What about terms? ELAC elections must be completed in the fall, and that is very general, and it again aligns with your school site council elections. So this should be ongoing in tandem, parallel with your school site council candidates and voting process. The term is recommended. Generally, it should be for 2 years. Of course, we know life happens and vacancies arise. And school sites can conduct elections at any time in order to fill the need should a vacancy occur. Again, there are ELAC bylaws in terms of how to best guide your site in this. Can elections be organized so that ELAC members' terms of office are staggered? Absolutely. And in fact, the state actually encourages this, so that way a site does not have to start from scratch every 2 years, since the terms are every 2 years. So it's something to think about in terms of growing more experienced members as we know terms are coming to an end. Here's something I really want to highlight because I've learned that there's a lot of misinformation around this particular process. And the question often is brought up: must we elect an ELAC if there are parents of English learners, ELs, on the school site council? And the answer is yes, you must still hold an ELAC at your site. Now, let's say after ELAC is established and has been trained on the responsibilities of what they're charged with as a committee, there is a process in which a site ELAC could relinquish or give up the responsibilities of all the tasks that we've gone over today, and that's required. It may be handed over to your school site council for a term and a period of 2 years. Okay, and again, this is guided by Ed Code. There's a right that school sites can do this. However, this action, and I want to highlight this again, this action requires a vote from ELAC. So first step, school sites, you have to assemble an ELAC in order to make this even a possibility. ELAC has to be aware of what the responsibilities are, and then they have to put it to a vote. in order to hand over the rights and responsibilities to the school site council. In terms of accountability, this action has to be recorded in the minutes of your school site council, and the school site council then is charged with all of the roles and responsibilities for the purposes required by law that we mentioned. So I'll just bring this slide up very quickly. SSC would then be responsible for revising and planning each year in regards to English language learners, and SIPSA. School Sites Council would be responsible for making recommendations, providing input. It does not absolve electing a DLAC representative. Regardless of what the site chooses to do, you still need to have a DLAC representative. So all of these things that are mandated by law would then be housed under the School Site Council. And regardless, I also wanted to highlight this. If a school site does not meet the threshold of 21 families or students identified as English language learners, it still begs the question, how will the school site communicate the messaging, the district initiatives, and all of these relevant issues to the EL community and families that are at your school site? Now, by law, it doesn't require you to hold a school site ELAC, but it behoves us this question. It begs this question of how will principals and school site councils advise and inform of decision-making and engage in an ongoing conversation that involves our families. So again, I just want to echo that ELAC, your English Learner Advisory Committee, is a collaboration that's rooted in the success for our students, and it is truly a collaborative effort. It involves Berkeley families, your principal, your English language development teacher, and your OFE specialist.